Co-founder of MarCommEd, and welcome to another episode of The Week Ahead. I'm joined today again by my co-founder Ryan Green from Enterprise, and we've got a great guest on who's going to give a lot of insight, Kevin Cooper from Cranmer Education Trust. First of all, I'm just going to go to Ryan. How are you, Ryan?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, Zach. I was at Neat Academy Trust's business breakfast this morning. So they kind of got a load of kind of business leaders, small business owners into the secondary school, which is Benfield Secondary School, talking about, they had this thing, Cradle to Career, this program, which was really good, actually. I really enjoyed that, really insightful, kind of seeing how education and business can come together. And of course, then I raced to the office so I could be here because we've got the Kev Cooper, joining us today, which is always good because I met Kev the first time at our opening event down in London, and I remember you, me, and him were kind of sat having breakfast in that amazing breakfast that only London can ever have, And that was 1950. Yeah, it was a good chat, wasn't it? It was a good chat, yeah.
Yeah, it was really good. Oh, that's good to hear. And you were mentioning before whether, obviously with the heat, I'm sure it's still hot in Newcastle where you are as well. We're blessed with a sunny day today. But big question, did you wear shorts this morning to the networking event?
I didn't, but I am wearing shorts now. I did actually pack a pair for an immediate change because, I don't know, the Northeast has seen over 20 degrees for a long time. There is no air conditioning units north of basically Redcar. So yeah, I'm very hot at the moment. My little mini office is basically like a giant sauna. So if I slowly melt off camera like this in the next couple of minutes, then you'll know why. But Kev, it was great to have you with us, and really, if you can just, for today's guests who are going to be watching this while we're live streaming, can you just give it a little bit of an intro into yourself, the trust you work for, and the role that you do?
Yeah, so my name's Kev Cooper. I am the lead creative and marketing manager at Cranmer Education Trust. I started 3 years ago, which has absolutely flown by. And when I joined the trust, I kind of pitched it. Obviously, it was for a marketing manager role, and I pitched it at more a creative output, just because my background is creative. So I ran an agency for, I think it was 11 or 12 years with my best friend, and that kind of came to a halt in 2017. And then I did some consultancy for a few more agencies around Manchester and did my own freelance thing. Did quite a lot of stuff in business and as a consultant for the education landscape for some schools. I really enjoyed it. And it was always that give back as well. So we did a project for a school called Matthew Moss in Rochdale. And on the back of that, we really did some good stuff with the students there. It was like we tried to initiate something called Digital Futures, which was just going in there and kind of telling students what the creative sector is about, nice. How they get into it. Did some workshops. It was brilliant. So that kind of led me here. It was a friend of mine who saw this role and just said, I think you'd have some really good sort of benefit in there, and go and pitch it as the lead creative. And that's exactly what I did.
Very good. Very good indeed.
Well, that's really good, Kevin. Obviously, we go back a long time, and the first time we met, probably about a decade ago now. Yeah. Yeah. And I remember obviously inquiring about a website for the school I was working for at the time. Yeah. And we've obviously kept in touch ever since. So it's nice to actually be working in partnership and simultaneously through the network now to today. But okay, so it's obviously great to hear that some of the stuff you've done, and you obviously share quite a lot on LinkedIn about the work you do across Cranmer Trust. But what's your focus for the week ahead?
So there's a few things actually. I've got the sixth form, so I'm just working on with the sixth form quite closely at the moment. So we recently did the What It Takes videos. So we went and filmed year 13s on what it takes to sort of be on the course that they're on, and the next steps for whether that's university or whether or not they're going down the apprenticeship route. So we've got a lot of footage to now edit. I think there was about 8 or 9 students that we've recently filmed. So there's the preparation for that. We're also working on the courses layout on the website. So we just need to make that a little bit better. So I'm going to be doing some work on that. And then Cranmer, we've been building a rebrand for quite some time. It's been more of an internal push at the moment, but we're now preparing for the stages to sort of say, right, websites under development. So I'm working closely with a developer to produce all the website stuff for that. So I'm doing the actual UI and UX, and then there's a developer sort of leading on that. And then just preparing what the next stage of rebrand looks like. So just getting some ideas down for, obviously we're going to do like an animation launch for old to new, why we did it, the new values, that type of thing. So a lot of exciting stuff for the rebrand coming up, and then potentially looking at how we communicate that as well a little bit further. So I want to get people in our trust on camera talking about what the rebrand's hopefully going to give us, why we've done it, and that type of stuff. And then the last thing is we've been working on a campaign for the skip, and that's been running for nearly 2 months now. So we're coming to the back end of that campaign. So we're just looking to switch it up. So what we've been doing is looking at different mediums, from video to animation to static, carousel views, just seeing what's working really. So yeah, there's going to be a good chunk of time just sort of analysing all that kind of data.
That sounds like a very, very busy weekend. I mean, I think if you said that in the month ahead, I'd still be like, it's definitely, and it's really interesting. You bring in the whole kind of UI, UX. So for those of our listeners that are listening, user interface, user experience. And talking about that on the website, and actually that's being part of things. Trust websites, school websites, they're just behemoths, aren't they? And sometimes there's just far too much content on them to actually make them digestible. So it's really interesting. You're kind of bringing those terms, because it's not. I think a lot of people within our profession kind of understand that, but it's not a phrase that we hear a lot within education, certainly not around communications and marketing, but in business and industry, that is one of the forefront topics, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really interesting. We had a marketing meeting the other day, and the CEO actually had been on another do you call it a competitor, another Matt's website, and she just said she couldn't believe how limited it was in terms of content, but actually how much it worked. And that's very much from day one of me kind of pitching this more creative marketing communications led role. I basically said it would be my ambition would be to for us to stand in our own lane. And that's not saying that we're just going to be totally different, but what I want people to do is sort of go, wow, they're kind of heading in their own direction, in the sense of our rebrand is it's minimalistic, but quite out there. It's not a traditional multi-academy trust kind of branding. And I had to pitch that to governors as well, on the vision of how that's going to come about. And it was really interesting, because one of the governors sort of challenged me and said, I'd really like to sort of see that kind of, the logo mark of traditional trust, how you've got the humanistic look, or, like a child-like logo, and it looks like a person. And she said, I thought you would bring something to do with children into the branding. And I actually Googled it on the fly and said, well, the humanistic logo. And she said, I don't know what that means. So I shown her, and then I Googled multi-academy trust logo, and that's every single person. It's exactly the same. There's a common trend there, and we kind of just wanted to be a little bit different, not too different, but yeah, really standing in our own lane, and that's pushing through. I guess the pros of me being creative is the fact that we can kind of run and gun with these things, and we can take an idea into full realization pretty quickly. We don't have to wait for externals to come in. So I do take care of a lot of the branding. I've rebranded a couple of our schools. I'm rebranding the trust. I've done the skit. I've done the Teaching School Hub. So that then translates into things like UI, UX, like we were talking before, and then that moves into more of the design, the strategy side of things, and then topping it off with storytelling, with video. So I do quite a lot, to be fair.
It's amazing to see how much control you've got over that full end-to-end process. And as Ryan rightly said there, it's interesting around the UI UX focus that you have. That I think for me is a big innovation that's coming into the demands for education, because it is getting more competitive across all fronts. And I think that the expectation that whether you're using a website for a school or trust, or whether it's a website for a product or service that you use and a utility provider, people are expecting the same experiences, and if you're not, then it goes against you. But I think it's fantastic that you're able to kind of be in that position, and it's great that you're sharing it for the community to hear. I must admit, listening there, I'm thinking, wow, that is a lot of stuff that we're not doing.
But to be fair, it comes with pros and cons, doesn't it? So, like, I'm not an out-and-out marketing and communications advisor, but I've been in the position of creating people's marketing strategies in the past. So it's that nice fine blend. So whilst I am doing all the glitzy glory stuff, and my boss is great, Christine Ellis, she's fantastic. She sort of gives me the agency to go off and run and gun with these things, and I always come up with the goods. And it's trying to find that blend between strategy, comms, marketing, and design, and that's been really difficult over these past 3 years. So we do use an external marketing and communications consultant, and there's an apprentice who's come on board recently as well, who's helping with the creative side of things. So it's not all just me, but it was for a very long time. Yeah. They call me the lighthouse here. They sort of say, like, wherever Kev's lighthouse is, that's where his focus is. So I do get frustrated though, because it's sometimes I feel like I'm only giving like 20% here, 5% there, 10% here. So it is trying to find that balance between creative and strategy. So that's the bit I need to sort of pull up. Whilst I've done a lot of good strategy work, it's kind of the bit that does fall off quite quickly.
Thanks for sharing that, Kev, because I think it's, you're very open and honest there with and very self-reflective. So it's quite insightful to just listen to like your view on what you're doing well, but also where you feel like you need to be better. So, just moving on to obviously the next question, which you kind of touched upon there, is what challenges are you currently facing?
I think I think we're all facing the same challenge at the moment, aren't we? We've just come out the back of the recruitment window, and there's a recruitment crisis within teaching. So trying to look at that and how that works. So we definitely need to have a better strategy for this next year. But I think what we have done is we've kind of thrown a bit of mud at the wall to see if it's stuck. So in terms of our recruitment campaigns recently, we've just used a provider called Socially Recruited, and ran some campaigns through that. We managed to get like 10, I think they call them like credits. So each credit is classed as a campaign. So we've got 10 credits, and we've just tested it really. And there's some pros and there's some negatives in that. I'm not too sure if we'll run with that next year, but it's something that we're trying to look at, see if it works. What can we take from that? What can we do ourselves? And that kind of leads back to the skit campaign that's currently running as well at the moment. So we needed to sort of understand what is working. So we've run it on Meta, but we've also done some PPC ads as well. And they've actually performed quite well. So we've worked closely with a consultancy called Tonic. I think it's Tonic Consultants. And they've been great as well. So they've ran the ads. I've done all like the designs, the creative side of things. And they've been really pivotal in sort of having that contact, regular updates of this is working, this isn't, can we switch this up? So that's been really good. What we have found is short form video is really exceeding as well.
Yeah.
So we were told like 15 seconds maximum, but I was like, no, 40 seconds. We're telling stories here.
But it's so true, isn't it? And I think this is it. It's recruitment has gone from the age of job ad, applicants, workflow to processing and induction to now 24/7 365 talent pool building. To basically have your own internal database, which you then kind of tap into when when you have a vacancy. And actually the pitch to people is more about the organization, the values, the vision, the kind of work ethos, the culture, because that's really what's going to increase retention, I think, in the longer term. And it's really interesting because these are the kind of tactics of big commercial organizations. They're just farming based, the whole of society to find people who really want to work there and are prepared to complete, the initial kind of talent pool form. And then they're using that. But that's the disappointing thing, I suppose, is the kind of, a lot of what the should we say, the more traditional recruitment channels in education are still very focused on this older style, because that's quite frankly, that's their business model, but not actually what the sector needs. So yeah, it's really interesting. And I love the fact that you're using short form video. It's just so engaging, isn't it? It's lovely. Yeah.
Well, what's really interesting is when we've had the feedback from the consultants, they basically said, like, we don't suggest anything over 15 seconds for like Facebook stories and Instagram stories. I was really adamant. I was like, no, I think it deserves a little bit more, because we're trying to get a little bit more across. So in terms of like marketing the skit, we're communicating to a specific audience, but we're also sort of saying to the ones that may think about getting into teaching, we're looking at negatives and positives as well. Like, what are the things that can be quite a bit of a struggle, being in a skit and learning and going through the motions of a skit. So we're trying to get that across to those individuals as well. And they basically said to us, like, oh, we don't know if it'll work, if it's anything over like 15, 20 seconds. But it seems to have worked. Like, I've gone through all the analytics as well, and like the pushback to our website and on the landing page and stuff has just been fantastic. So that's something that we're definitely going to pick up on again, I think, when we do stuff around the trust.
Brilliant. I think there's a lot there for people to take away, because you mentioned at the start, we feel like it could be better. I think I probably speak for the whole sector in the sense that we all want it, and for me, I think there'd be nothing better than to get every multi-academy trust, every school in the country working together on some campaign to really raise the profile and make the sector more attractive, or perceived to be more attractive than it currently is. Because you go on Twitter, or X as it's now known as, there's a lot of negative comes on there around the sector, but actually what we're not doing enough is counteracting that with all the great stuff that is within the education space. So I think that'd be something I'd be really keen. It's probably a shout out to everybody that's watching. If you are involved in a trust, I think that's something that we've really got to drive forward on, because we're doing similar tactics to yourself, and we're encountering the same problems. There's the funnel for me is actually getting broader in terms of channels and competition, but lighter in terms of people coming through it. And getting them through that funnel then gets far more challenging. And in some ways, it doesn't always have the best return on investment, because when you're throwing money at these campaigns and you're not getting the response, then questions are asked, and it makes you think twice about doing it again. But just staying on the topic of trends, and so what emerging trends in the sector are currently influencing the way you're developing your marketing and comms campaigns?
I think we discussed then about short format and long format videos. Like, storytelling is something that we have to do, and like you say, it ticks the boxes across the whole trust, doesn't it? Telling the stories throughout our schools. Can
I just interrupt there? Sorry, Kevin. Just what's your definition of storytelling? Because I've had this conversation, and it's very it's people have a different understanding of what storytelling is, but what does storytelling look like in practice?
It's being user focused, isn't it? So it's like having the users, like, whether that's prospective parents and children, it's basically navigating a story towards those people. So like ages ago, I mean, one of our trust schools have been talking to us about having a virtual tour, and I can't. I spoke to the COO here, and I was saying, is that the right thing? And she was like, does it not feel like that's 10 years old now? Surely it needs to come from the people that are actually in those schools, the teaching that's actually happening in those schools, the students that are actually learning in these environments, and showing off, in the fact that, if you've got a new school, like we've got Brian Clark in the heart of Oldham Town Centre, showing off the facilities. It's new, isn't it? It's something to talk about. So making sure you've got all the nice drone footage and, the big glitzy overview of the schools. But, if you're known for sport, hammer the sports bit.
Yeah, it's interesting, because I think there's a real difference between showcasing and storytelling. If you've got a brand new spanking school that's like all the glitz, all glass and chrome everywhere, looks amazing, that's your virtual tour, because actually what you're doing is you're showcasing. You're like, if you can't get on site, look at this facility. But let's face it, there's a lot of schools that just don't have that, right? There's a lot of schools who turn up, they're all looking a bit rough around the edges, they could do with a lick of paint, and actually I think that's where storytelling, like you said, is more person centric. It's more, there's a level of authenticity to it, an element of vulnerability that has to make it trustworthy. But the real trick to storytelling, as you said, is you're thinking about the audience and what the audience wants to hear and what they want to engage with, rather than what you want to show them or tell them. And yes, you've got to weave your narrative in, but you're always putting that person at the forefront, which kind of goes back to UI and UX, right? You know, UI and UX is not about how do I get more content on there. UI and UX is more about like, how does the person who's looking at this context take it in easier so I get what I need to across, get the message across. And it might, a lot of the times, it's cutting stuff out. I mean, that's the crazy thing. It is cutting stuff out.
Yeah, it's been really interesting because obviously when I first started, for 9 months of my, when I first started was nothing but Brian Clark, and we didn't have anything to go by other than Alison Ash, which is the head teacher. So I decided, well, that's the only thing we can market. Alison is the only thing that we can market. So what we did was we built up like a bit of a database of people that were registering their interest, and we just kept targeting them, whether that was just an update from Alison. But we went out and we actually filmed her, and we went to the location where the school was going to be built. We then did the updates of like how the building's going. We then went to the development company, Wilmot Dixon. We got them on camera. We got Alison there. So it was always like spinning Alison into this is the person who's going to drive the school forward, who's going to actually, change the life chances of the students that actually go to it. And it was really refreshing to hear the feedback of when they first had their open evening at one of our other schools. And people were saying to her, I feel like I know you. So I knew that it was doing a really good job, and now it was working. And of course, when the first year opened up for student numbers, it was really, really, really positive. I think we had like 800 applicants in the first year.
Wow.
Which is just like the DFE, even DFE said, like, can't believe them numbers for a school that doesn't even exist yet. That was going to go into temporary buildings. It's like, I'm sure it was like 700 or something, like 800 or something like that.
Amazing. Well, yeah, hats off to your marketing campaigns there. I think the key thing there, and the underlying kind of message and what kind of answered my interrupting question around storytelling there was how interconnected your campaigns are, and I think that's key with that storytelling and piecing it together. But I think that's been a really, really insightful conversation, Kevin, and I think that a lot of listeners and viewers from today will hopefully reach out to you, because there's a lot of golden nuggets there that you've shared, which I'm sure people will want to pick your brains on if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
People can find you on LinkedIn, can't they? That's probably the best place. Just Kevin Cooper in the MarCommEd community. But just a big thank you from me for coming on today and sharing that insight. And any last words from yourself, Ryan?
No, just really appreciate the insight, and we've massively shot over time. So but no, it's been. I think it's been really valuable and really good. So we definitely need to do something again, definitely around that storytelling. I really like that.
Yeah. I think we've got your long form lightning talk.
I just want to say thank you to you guys as well. Obviously, when we went down to Canberra and did the first MarCommEd stuff, it's really good trying to build that network, and it was nice to sort of understand the pain points that other people are experiencing. And it was a really good, the exercises that we did when we split up into 3 groups was really nice to understand the blend of like where I've got a bit of an advantage of being able to run and gun with design, other people don't. So passing that kind of advice on and gaining that advice in return from like a strategic lead as well.
Yeah.
Excellent.
No, thank you for that.
Pleasure.
Yeah, really appreciate it. Really appreciate it. Right. I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm going to go and cool down because I'm literally melting here. So, right. Anyway, listen, great to see you both.
Likewise. Cheers, thank you. Thanks, Ryan. Thanks, Kevin.
Yeah.